Hi, Sarah.
Hello, Robin.
So this is Sarah Salter Kelly. Honored to have a conversation with her today about breath work and psychedelics. Sarah's been working with plant medicines for almost 20 years ceremonially,
Yeah.
and you've shared with me that you probably started around 30 some odd years ago
Yeah,
when,
yeah.
when we both started to
And when we
explore
both started, back when it wasn't called
expanding our
ceremony,
yeah
it had a different names.
more of a party
Yeah.
nature to it, but at the same time, we were doing some work back then. It was a lot.
Yeah.
It was integration for me, exploring with mushrooms and LSD.
Same here. It was mushrooms and LSD, and I always felt like some sort of profound spiritual teaching came through
Right.
with that work that then integrated into my path, even starting at that young of an age. Right. So over time, I got rid of the party component and more curious about the spiritual.
I'm with proper teachers and guidance, space
I'm with
holders.
teachers and guidance
Yeah.
and reckoning with my own self and some of the experiences that showed up in my life, some of the challenges or traumas at a young age, where I had to really discern how to be with hard things, right? How do we be with what we can't control and still open our hearts?
Which is ultimately the greatest quality of any space holder, is that integrity of depth of self, the amount of self-work that needs to be done to be there for others.
And continuous, as I know we're going to dive into it more, but as I said to you, what's amazed me about the practice that you're sharing with Breathwave is I had no idea how much more healing work I could do. And just reckoning with how the breath, when worked with in a certain way, can bring us into a deep and deeper space of presence. That certainly the only thing that I have found that compares to that is plant medicine ceremony.
But there's something different, and this is what I want to talk about today. I'm just about to share a course that I've put a lot of time and energy into, with the experience that I have diving into breath for almost 30 years now, and exploring with plant medicines as long as you have been, and ceremonially for a good 20 years as well. But it's never been my path to serve, as much as I've been asked to support my community with others that were carrying and serving the medicines. It was always really clear that the plants were sharing with me that my path was with the breath. And it's been such a blessing to share the breath with you and to see the impact of someone that's so steeped in a medicine path, and all of a sudden they come to the breath and they're like, oh, there's something here for me. So the reason I created this Breathwork for Psychedelics course that we're speaking about, and I want to speak to you about today, is what are the benefits and importance of preparing in a good way for a ceremony, learning how to breathe openly, and your breath helping you through ceremony, but mainly the importance of integration of a peak experience that can crack someone open, especially if you're new, because I find that there can be a lack of really good integration, of having community and having some space held for you once your mind is blown open and you open a can of worms, and some of your traumas start to emerge. So beyond your own experience, and I'd like to dive in deeper into that, how do you see the importance and the benefit of someone having a connection with themselves, regulating their own nervous system, an awareness of their connection with spirit, but particularly how it's going to support them in their life as a daily tool?
I think that's one of the biggest questions and the most important for people who are landing from plant medicine, right? They're needing to map the space between the mystery and the mundane. And to map that space, we need practices that help to support embodiment. And so with breath, it offers a client the opportunity to go into their own blocks, their own experiences of restriction, or what I'll often call the forgetting. Because I feel like plant medicine gives us this great sense of remembering, this truth medicine, where we're able to come more home to ourselves, to gather up our exiled parts, detach from some of the patterning that we have subscribed to through most of our lives.
By default.
Right? So whether it's a moment of deep awakening or whether somebody leaves the plant medicine journey in grief or trauma, right? Recognizing that they have some excavating that they need to do in their day-to-day. Both need practices that they can hone in on in order to support embodiment. So what I'm noticing with breath, because you're not having to think it psychologically, so that, you're not sitting in meditation, and yet it is, I find, more nourishing than a meditation practice in many ways. You're offering up your body this opportunity to reoxygenate, to go into restriction, to allow for opening, to recognize the metaphor for how you receive through your inhale, how you release or how you bring yourself into the world through your exhale. And it's that simple. Things just come up or show up that somebody can then start to be curious about as they're bringing self-inquiry to how does this experience in my breath practice today act as a metaphor for some of what came up in my plant medicine ceremony that again can then bridge the gap between the mystery and the mundane.
And what's been coming up in my life.
And what's patterning's been coming up in my life. Right. And how to be with that patterning so that you can explore it and then make a conscious choice whether or not it's patterning that actually sustains you and you want to be the impetus that moves your life forward, or whether it's something that you're like, hey, just a second. I need to step back for a minute with some breathing space and recognize I'm walking with things that don't serve me.
Yeah. That's what I love about the breath, is it gives us this awareness of how we're relating. The patterns that are mostly unconscious and how we breathe start to be more conscious, and we get to be reflected by your facilitator, your support, that there's some ways that you're controlling, there's some ways that you're resisting as you're breathing right now. And as we unpack that, we notice that actually I'm controlling most of the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the circumstances in my life. So as I release and relinquish control in my breath, naturally that's going to help me be more free in my life and let things be as they are, accept myself as I am, etc. One thing that you touched on earlier that I would love for you to speak to is that in a plant medicine journey, there's a beginning, middle, and an end, and in some way you're following the guidance of the space holder, that to some degree there's agenda. And one of the things that you really love about the breathwave space is that there's no agenda here. It's really about you coming into you and experiencing your own connection with life.
I think that we're at a time on our planet where we're inundated with so much messaging about how we need to process ourselves. And so we're always looking to follow the rules in order to do it the right way, in order to accomplish the goal or get to the destination that we think we've attached to. With this practice with breath, is there's no rule other than following that rhythm. And so we're following that rhythm without a facilitator placing their idea of where you're supposed to go, what the outcome looks like. And that in of itself allows for opening. So if we think that some of the more collective energies that have been at work for a while are really encouraging people to recognize their agency, to understand your sovereignty, to make these really healthy choices coming from a place of your own empowerment. We can't do that if we can't feel ourselves. Precisely. And in order to feel ourselves, we have to be able to be with what's hard. So often in personal growth and spiritual healing, there is an agenda and outcome. There's this idea of what do you need to let go of, release, work on. that automatically puts a charge in the nervous system, because we're like, oh, there's another thing I have to do. And our nervous systems are so overextended from all of the things that we feel like we have to tend to.
Right, since our very education system of being told what to do and
what to do,
conform to the
what's
curriculum.
the right thing, what's the wrong thing. And so we've lost our ability. One of the things that my students or clients are often struggling with is following their intuitive impulses. What's the right thing for me to do? Or I'm afraid to do the wrong thing. So a lot of our practices are looking at how to be with your gut instinct and to go inwards. So if we apply that to what's showing up from my own experience with breath, and what I've noticed with those I've supported so far, is that that there's space that is created because it is unregulated, other than you're creating this rhythmic inhale and exhale. The facilitator might be helping you to recognize where you're holding restriction or contraction, but you're going into your body. And so there's a big shift with that because of the space. So the mind, for some initially, might start being really busy. What am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go? This is uncomfortable. I don't like this. And all you have to do is breathe into it. And so the similarity or the segue with plant medicine when we're looking for integration is we need practices that we can open into that also take us into the mystery. And so the breath takes us into the mystery in a way that is tangible in the day-to-day. And we need those things that we can root into in the day-to-day. The idea with plant spirit healing is not that you're planning your life around the next peak experience, right? These are teachers that are here for us to open to our soul and allow for truth to come through. Then truth has to be lived, which means you get home and you got changes to make.
You got to implement the lessons.
You got to implement the lessons, right?
Yeah.
And those take space.
Sure.
I'd mentioned in the beginning that, yes, I started with psychedelics at 15, 16, 17, 18. But at 18, I had this sense that a lot of what I was seeing was real. And I wanted to learn how to implement that in my life without putting anything in my body. So I actually didn't do psychedelics between 18 and 32. As I integrated, I investigated, I inquired, how do I live this? Because some big teachings had shown up. And so it's not about overwhelming ourselves with deeper spiritual teachings. It's about coming home to who we are now in this moment, and we can find that with breath.
100%.
And as you know, because I've shared with you, I'm still blown away by the practice that you're sharing. Every time that I breathe, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. How did I not know about this at an earlier time in my life, right? But just the ease in which I can come into me and be fully vulnerable and feel safe with that. Yeah.
Beautiful. And that's essentially my intention, is to bring people home to themselves and remember that we are safe. But there's so many circumstances throughout our life where we haven't felt safe. So we vacate from the belly, we get tight in the chest. The survival mechanisms that are ingrained in our human experience with how much we're overstimulated it makes it tough to live here. And then you see the addiction of dopamine from devices that kids are getting these days. It's hard for them to just manage with basic tasks because the brain's not getting what it needs, right? And so as we start to work with our endocrine system through the breath, we start to balance our hormonal chemistry, which is influencing the bloodstream. It's influencing our heart rate. It's slowing down brain rhythms. And so nervous system regulation is really the first step. But breath is also quite psychedelic.
It can be quite psychedelic.
Right? Because we can create a trance state, what I like to call extraordinary states
Yes.
of consciousness.
I do love those.
Right.
I do love that part.
We like, some people call them altered states, but
Yeah.
they're extraordinary.
Yeah.
And it
But
is
they're
our
not taking
natural
you
state.
out. And that's what I like, is
Mm.
that it's taking you in.
Thank you.
And certainly the plant spirits that I prefer, fungus spirits, mama mushroom and ayahuasca, and part of my love of them is that in my experience, they take me deeper in. So what I'm loving about breath is that you're going deeper in, you're able to come into an extraordinary experience without putting anything in your body. And so in maybe a more rooted way, determine your self-regulation. Because that, I think, is one of the most important parts for people who are coming home from a plant medicine ceremony, is what steps can they bring into their day-to-day practice,
Right.
that helps them to do that, where they can touch on the mystery, that they can also take care of some of the tasks that are part of being human.
Thank you.
And so we need to find a way to marry practices together that are a good fit, that generate life.
Thank you.
And so it needs to be ones where we can come in and find our own agency, which, speaking about what you were saying about all the restriction that is such a part of growing up in these times, you can do that with a soft noticing of, wow, it was really hard for me to breathe into my chest today.
Mm-hmm.
Or look at how much I felt like I had to move my back forward while I was breathing, even though I was lying down. I wonder if there's some sort of correlation between that and the responsibilities that I'm carrying in my life.
Right.
You know, so we can start to find the threads that connect in such a way so that it's integrated.
Which, like you said, is so self-empowering, because we realize, especially after a ceremony or even without plant medicines, I actually have what it takes to manage and integrate the intensities of my life and come back to a space of balance and alignment and stability, right? Most people, I mean, here in BC growing up, the medicines that we're given are avoidance and numbing, right?
Yeah.
The drugs and alcohol that we're given that are social are very numbing and suppressing as far as our emotional maturity, right? So here we are with a practice that actually gives us an emotional capacity to tune into our felt sense, to create some coherence between our perception, the light of our consciousness, and our feeling nature, which creates a coherence, right? And so really it's about getting better at feeling.
Yeah, one of my good colleague friends just posted something on a group chat the other day. You know, it's not that we're here to feel better, it's that we're here to better feel. Right? And so that reminder, and I think that speaks really clearly, Robin, to what you were saying about the intensity of our lives. We're seeking practices to manage the intensity of our lives. It doesn't have to be coming from a psychedelic experience. The psychedelic can act as a metaphor and highlight patterning of intensity. But all of us, simply through the experience of being human, are inundated with intensity through this journey. Now, there's one thing that's true for all of us, is that we're going to go through hard things.
Sure.
You know, and probably at least 50% of our life, which means that we need resources where we remind ourselves it's okay. We can be with that.
Thank you.
And so with breath, what I've observed is this ability to feel safe in my body in a more visceral or tangible way, and know that I can be with whatever the challenges are that are showing up.
Thank you.
So that it's breathed in on all senses.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some things that we've added to the practice over the years that we've learned about somatic movement, somatic feeling. All the different somatic therapies are really about our feeling nature. And so using sound, using movement to move some energy when things do get overwhelming if we lean into the transpersonal domain of clearing the subconscious from some of these old stories, and then coming back again to stillness and circulating the breath.
And it gives, again, somebody something that they can do to be with the intensity that they're recognizing is present in their body. So that's what I like about having the permission, if you will, to honor that sound needs to come through. I think people are noticing that in their body anyway. And it's a part of my practice even when I'm doing yoga. My kids used to make fun of me when they were younger, like why are you screaming while you're doing it? I'm like, something needed to move, right? I was just listening to my body.
Better I scream at myself.
Better to scream when I'm in downward dog or stretching my hips than at you guys. And so the more that we tune in, we can feel, again, we're wanting to encourage people with healthy practices that you can feel yourself and you can express yourself. So if that's with a tone or a movement in the voice, and then you can come back and notice the contrast, right? How does the nervous system settle after there's been a big release with a tone or a scream? What's different?
Sure.
And that sense of agency is even further empowered.
And the more we keep learning about the nervous system, we're seeing that a healthy nervous system isn't just calm. It knows intensity and how to be with it, and it knows calm and how to be with it. It's really about maintaining a quality of presence in all that occurs in our life, and we're all going to continue to have strong waves of challenge and intensity that show up. But how are we with it? Are we unconsciously resisting or controlling or defensive, or can we simply just stay in our presence? That's what the nervous system really knows how to do, is maintain presence.
And I think that's the greatest gift that most people are seeking in their spiritual path, is how can I come home to myself and be with who I am without that being dependent on external variables. Right? And that's when we have a balanced nervous system, we can be with the contrasts without the thought of, like, I can be peaceful right now because kids are sleeping, or this is happening, or this is happening.
The external circumstances.
Yes. And if that's the only time that peace is going to show up, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, how do we find that sense of regulation? Whether it's intense or whether there's a softening, can we still be with what's happening in our bodies without leaving?
Thank you.
You know, that's the biggest one for me, is to be with, to not leave myself. I don't want to abandon myself in intensity, right? Or when things are hard, or I feel uncomfortable or afraid in opening my heart. I want to be able to stay here.
Exactly. Thank you. That seems like the greatest gift, and I think one of the qualities that's a testament to any breath worker is that quality of presence, and in holding space with others. A saying that I got from my brother Patrick, who is going to be with us this week, is no one cares what we know until they know that we care.
Yeah.
And the greatest friend that we have these days is someone that can just listen without telling us to be different in any way or giving us any advice. When you're grieving the loss of a loved one, you don't want to be told what that feels like. You just need an ear. You need another heart to feel you, to hear you.
Yeah, and that comes back to somebody who can be with it without trying to make it better.
Exactly.
Right? Or without their own discomfort becoming the medium in which instructs their actions.
Thank you.
Because somebody's grief, somebody's intensity is uncomfortable for whoever's facilitating. And I'm sure you've observed this in your own work in circles. And certainly I've observed this in facilitating group plant medicine. Group intensity is uncomfortable. And I have to ensure that I'm not attached to fixing it or making it better or wanting someone to have a win or any of those pieces, to be present enough that I trust the wisdom inside of them and they can trust the wisdom inside of them too. And somehow it's going to come into a place of regulation by opening to what's here. And the same is true with breath. We can trust in the wisdom that's coming through, but we have to hear it first.
Yeah.
And if we're so busy trying to escape ourselves or jump out of our bodies or move away from our own pain bodies, then we don't know what the fuck is coming through because we can't hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And initially it takes a little bit of guidance to be brought in and the space held in a calm and comfortable way, so we can keep coming back to resourcing when there is overwhelm that wants to escape. Yeah. Right. So the nervous system starts to learn that quality of presence that's not running away. Yeah. And keeps coming back, and it takes time, it takes practice, and this is why it is a daily practice. Yeah. So it's my prayer that people can remember and learn how to breathe. I had an offering on a local thread where I live, where people were asking what people's gifts are that they were sharing on a community thread, and I said, I share breath work, and this one gentleman said, oh, this guy can sell sand to an Arab. Right. He's charging people to breathe, right?
Yeah.
And so I responded, and I said, that's funny. And do you know these things about breath? That it can cleanse the lymph system, that it can improve your cardiovascular system, that it can bring you some mental stability and clear brain fog, right? Improve our digestion. It might even heal your prostate cancer. And he was like, oh, right? Like his response was like, oh, okay, thank you, right? And so that's one of the things I realized is that because doctors aren't taught the benefits of the respiratory system, they're just taught the symptoms of imbalance in the respiratory system. They don't learn the psychosomatic connection, the influence to the cardiovascular system, how we literally receive oxygen that's our body needs to regenerate on a cellular level.
And then what choices do we make different in our lives when we're oxygenated? Right? Like when we're present, how does the chemistry in our system actually function differently? That then shifts the dynamic in which we engage with life and who we are, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Like all of that shifts.
Yeah. One of the things I've been with is the effects that are really similar in taking, say, a microdose is I can get that with a short breath practice, which turns on higher brain centers. Instead of living from my limbic system, which is defensive in nature and triggered when my kids aren't listening, if I have a practice in the morning, I'm functioning from my frontal cortex, from the neocortex, from the human layer of my higher consciousness. I can live from that place where I can be with what is, because I've spent some time with myself. I can be with myself, right? So that's ultimately the quality that I'd love to see people using to integrate the way that plant medicines open us and to realize that we are the medicine.
Yeah.
Right? Those things all have their place. And I have utmost high respect for all of those plant teachers. And we can achieve similar states and more of a stability in our daily life that's, like you said, not looking for the next peak experience to get some answers. And I've seen a bit of a spiritual addiction in some of the plant medicine communities.
You know, people listing off the amount of ceremonies they've had, like you're putting ticks on anyway, the justification or proof of legitimacy. I mean, really, it comes down to belonging, worthiness, and all of those pieces. We need practices where we're stepping away from any desire for justification of who we are. And this is what I feel is coming through with breath. You already matter because you're here. You're nature. You're a part of this. You already belong because it is. And through that, how do we allow for a deeper awakening into our aliveness with our own practice, right? So a deeper opening into that. And on a day-to-day basis, as you said, you've noticed a shift, or there, in the ways in which you're able to parent, you're able to be with that when you have a practice in the morning, as opposed to if you didn't have a practice that day, right? Mm-hmm. Because it gives us that chance to be conscious of our reactions, our responses, our triggers, and be curious about them.
Because we feel connected.
Because we feel connected, right? So that comes back to belonging, worthiness, all of those things. If I'm here in my body and I remember I'm connected, all of those things that pull me out, they're not even real. Yeah. They're not even real things.
Thank you. And they feel so real.
They so
overwhelmed by all of the things that throw off our central nervous system for us to be in a stress response, right? So the simplicity.
Old lineage patterning, things that come through our ancestors. I would feel stuff come through when my kids were little, and I could have used breath work back then. I did do a lot of fire breath and a few other things, but I remember observing my system needing to go into a rage or an explosion about something. And Sarah, it's not real. You don't have to get mad about this. It's not real. But something in my system was like, I have to scream right now.
And I have to be heard.
And then after, how did that work for you? Did that really give you the outcome that you wanted, right? And so, again, back to breath. Practices where we can observe our triggers or reactions without identifying with them as who we are. Right. We're not the thoughts or ideas coming through our head. This is just wind.
Because our kids want the same thing. Yeah. They just want connection. They want attention. Exactly. They want presence.
Exactly.
And can we regulate ourselves enough to be there for their big emotions? Because they know how to emote. They know how to move energy.
They do.
We just don't know how to hold space for it if it's overwhelming for us, because we're dysregulated, right? So thank you so much for this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely, Robin. Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Let's keep bringing breath and.
It's amazing.
Here we are.
Like, this shit's real. Thank you.